titled Re-Affirming the Prosperous Life. Re-Affirming the Prosperous Life. This, I believe absolutely. We did not come into this world with a have-not consciousness. We did not come into this world believing in lack and limitation. We did not come into this world believing that we must struggle financially. We did not come into this world believing that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. We did not one of us. And we know this, for we know that there is no God of separation, but a God of omnipresent good. There is no God of the rich and God of the poor. And karma is just a man-made idea that truly serves us only when we know how to use it constructively. No one is born into this world with bad karma, for that would defy the unconditional love of God and define God in man's image, rather than the truth that we are created in the image and the likeness of God. We learn these things from the world. Why? Because the world consciousness believes these things absolutely, and this absolute dominant consciousness creates impressions upon our own consciousness that cause us to believe in these things or even worse things. This is why the Mastermind Jesus declared that we are to be in the world, but not of the world. And this is the most important thing we must know in order to win the game of life. But most of us were not told this, or if we were told this, we did not understand it, or the person who told us what it means defined it with so much religious mumbo-jumbo that we just didn't get it. By the time we had acquired the realization that this is a key to experiencing the abundant life, we had already accepted so many things that we must give up in order to accept the truth. So many things that we see in our world separate us from each other. There are so many labels that label people. There are so many beliefs in superiority and inferiority, so many beliefs in racial divisiveness and racial separations and national separations that we forget that the universe is created by one power, one intelligence, one spirit that we call God, for lack of a better word, that everything is in balance, everything is functioning with intelligence, that intelligence is permeating the world in which we live. And if we start thinking about all the laws of God in the natural world, the law of gravity, the law of mathematics, the laws of electricity, all the laws that govern this universe in which we live, in a scientific way, we realize that God's law is universal, and it's a law of good. And if we start thinking in our mind about all the things we've learned from this world, all the things that have taken us into that feeling of being diminished somehow from being able to realize the greater things, the desires of our heart, the joys that we seek to experience from within for ourselves and for all others. And we realize that these are things we learned from the world. We came into this world believing and accepting that this is a new adventure in life. You know, when you look at a small child with their curiosity, and first they begin to crawl, and then they begin to walk so they can see more and more of the world, and you look at the wonder in their eyes, and you look how they accept everyone, no matter who they may be, no matter what their place in life may be in the moment, no matter what race, creed, color, religion, nationality, or language that they speak. When you see a small child, you see that spirit that we all came into this world with. We didn't come into this world thinking that we're less than, or that somebody is feeling that we're less than because of our race, our creed, our nationality, or the language that we speak, or our place in life, or our level of prosperity, or any of that. We came into this world believing in life, believing that life has something for us, that this world has something for us to do, a purpose for us to fulfill. We came into this world because the spirit that clothed our spirit in human form, seeks to express that good life, that joyful life, that abundant life through us. That's why Jesus said, I have come to tell you that you may have life, and you may have it more abundantly. But the things that we've learned from the world We've learned to look outside of ourselves for our good. We've learned to look to other people, other things for our achievements and our accomplishments. We've looked out into the world and we've compared ourselves too often unfavorably, and therefore we did not gain the achievements and the accomplishments that we were seeking to realize in our life experience. So we go back to the principle that God is all, that God is everything, that there's only one power, one intelligence, one spirit, one mind, and that we all draw from that one intelligence, that spirit, that life, that one mind. We know that we're life, that God has created life, that there's only one life, and that life is expressing this life through each and every one of us. Its spirit through our spirit, its intelligence through our intelligence, its power through our power. We can know this. We can believe this. We can go through the ancient scriptures of the Holy Bible, the Torah. We can go back to the Bhagavad Gita. We can go back 1,500 years before Jesus, and we can read that it's done to us according to our belief. And Jesus reinforced that in our mind, that it's done unto us as we believe. So as we believe that with God all good things are possible, with God we can receive those good results that we seek in our mind, those good results that not only benefit us, but benefit all those around us. That if we realize in our mind that God always works through the universal good, that no selfish prayer is ever answered, that we must realize that what good we seek for ourselves must also benefit those around us and benefit the world in which we live, then we can accept that we can believe in our prayer and the answer to it, because we realize that we've got our mind in tune with the infinite, in tune with the infinite good. Let's look at these words from the great Lillian deWaters in her classic 1922 book, How to Have Abundance. She gives us a testimony of what happens when we embody this not of this world state of consciousness, that not of this world. Remember, that's Jesus' key to life. Be in the world, but not of the world. Be in the world, but don't accept the falseness of the world. Don't accept that you're anything other than that perfect image likeness of God, seeking to express your life to a purpose that's greater than anything we probably ever thought about before. That's why Jesus said we can do the greater things still. So Lillian deWaters writes in her book, faith believes in the invisible perfection rather than outward appearances. Faith believes in the invisible perfection rather than outward appearances. There is no way to prove your faith other than by acting upon it. There is no way to prove your faith other than by acting upon it. When we say to the mountain, that is the discord, be thou removed, do we then act as though it were out of our way? Faith is bold and fearless. It is divided faith that fails. I might tell here of a simple faith in the right and good, an absolute single-mindedness, won for me, a success which otherwise would never have come into my experience. So we know she begins this with those words to Jesus. He said, if you have faith, you can the size of a mustard seed. Just think how small that is. And in the Bible it says it's the smallest seed in the world, but we know that wasn't true. But the people that wrote that assumed that it was, because that's what their level of their awareness and knowledge at the time. But Jesus said that, you see, if you have the faith, you can move that mountain into the sea. But he wasn't telling us to move mountains into the sea, but to be bold and fearless in our faith, to take action towards those ideas, those good desires of our heart, to let God manifest those through us, because whatever God is going to do for us, God must do through us. So let's go back to these words of Lillian deWaters. She says, I might tell here of how simple faith in the right and good and absolute single-mindedness won for me a success which otherwise would never have come into my experience. She writes, it was some years ago while I was a public school teacher that finishing my term in a suburb, I applied in person for a position in a large city. The superintendent of the city schools met me kindly, listened to my oral application, and then said, "We could not possibly give you a position to teach in our city. Firstly, we accept only college graduates. This is absolute. Your certificate is normal." That's normal with a capital N, which means at some point in our history, teachers were allowed to teach without a college degree. He said, so your certificate is normal, and you would receive no consideration whatsoever. Secondly, every room in every school in this city has a teacher engaged for the coming term. I listened in silence, thanked him for his time, left my name and address upon his desk, and walked out of his office. The first thought that came to me was exhilarating. The first thought that came to me was exhilarating, she writes. It was this: there is no reason for you to feel disappointed. His decision is not final. He does not give you your place nor position in this world. God gives you your place. I did not understand then that my own right mind was God, but my faith in right and might was omnipotent, and I saw nothing at all in the way or in the path that I desired. In other words, she's realizing something that so few people realize in their life, that no one gives to us but ourselves. No one gives to us but ourselves, and no one takes from us but ourselves. That it's God in our consciousness. It's the power of God in our own mind that gives to us, and it's the power of God in our own mind that looses those things from us that no longer serve us. So let's go back to Lillian deWaters, her wonderful testimony. It was the end of June that I made this application, and not a word did I hear in furtherance during July and August of the vacation period. However, a doubt never entered my mind that what I would be given the position that I asked. Never once did my mind waver, worry, nor fear. I knew it would come, and simply I rested upon this fact. I felt it would come because it would be right. My parents were then living in that city, and I wished with all my heart to live with them, for we had been separated for several years. The feeling that there was a place here for me, because it would be good for us all, was what gave me the supreme confidence and mental conviction of success. So let's go back and let's realize how she came to this steadfast conclusion. She writes, I knew it would come, and simply I rested upon this fact. I felt it would come because it would be right. My parents were then living in that city, and I wished with all my heart to live with them, for we had been separated for several years. Notice how she's not just realizing something for her good, but the good for those around her. The feeling that there was a place here for me because it would be good for us all was what gave me the supreme confidence and mental conviction of success. The first week of September was nearly past, and but 2 days were left before the opening of the school term. Still, I can truly say that never a doubt nor anxiety entered my mind. I was calm, poised, at perfect rest, and the feeling that I would have that place that I desired. That day, a telegram was sent to me by the very superintendent whom I had interviewed, and the message told me that I had been appointed a position as teacher in his schools, and he would expect me on the opening day. I can distinctly recall how I stood reading that telegram without a quiver of surprise, only gladness and joy. I soon discovered that the school in which I was placed was in the best residential section, the most desirable school in the whole city, the teacher appointed for that room being unable to accept the position. I obeyed the law of single-mindedness. In other words, if thy mind be single, we shall receive that thing that we definitely are pursuing, that we are definitely seeking. Narrow is the gate, straight is the way, and few are those that enter, because of lack of single-mindedness and steadfast faith. So she writes, I obeyed the law of single-mindedness. I had supreme faith and loving feeling, and of course this fixed right sense and feeling manifested itself in the thing that I desired. The law of mind says that with God, nothing is impossible. Think of it. The law of mind says that with God, nothing is impossible. Think of it, that is everything right, that it is possible for you to think and feel you can do or have, you can do and can have. So we look at that testimony from Lillian deWaters from her 1922 book, How to Have Abundance, and we realize that she's using the same principles that the mastermind Jesus was giving to all of us. He was trying to get each and every one of us to realize that we can have that greater thing still, that God responds to us by corresponding to that which we believe to be true for us. In this deWaters testimony, we find an absolute principle at work. No one gives to us but ourselves. Too often people will apply for a job or audition for an acting part, looking to the interviewer or the casting director to give them the job, and this almost always instills in the mind doubts and the possibility of rejection. In consciousness, this is felt by the interviewer or the casting director and more than likely impresses upon their mind a weakness in the one seeking the job. We must always be definite about what we want, and if we are not definite that we want something, we should avoid putting ourselves in a position to experience our lack of desire for it. In other words, if we don't want it, leave it alone. If we aren't convinced that it's for our good and the good of all those around us, let it go. Don't let ourselves be living in confusion. When we're not sure about something, it's not for us. If we're not definite that it's the way for us to go, the job for us to have, the relationship for us to be in, the company for us to work for, whatever it may be, the doctor that we're to use to keep ourselves healthy, if we're not certain about those things, let it go until we find a certainty in our mind that that's the right place for us, the right people for us, the right thing for us. In realizing that my own right mind was God, put Miss Waters in an uncompromising position. She must receive that which she asks for, because God has brought her the idea, God has given her the assurance, God has given her the knowingness at the deepest levels of her mind that it was for her, and she knew it was for a good purpose. So she must receive that which she asked for. When we take into our mind the truth that when our decisions are for that which is good and right and benefits all concerned, we can rest in the knowing that we shall have it, that we shall have it. This includes everything that we may want, whether it's money, position, relationships, homes, cars, etc., as well as the things of the Spirit that we feel when we know that we know, the happiness, the joy, and the peace of mind. Miss deWaters had the mental equivalent of absolute principle. Whatever it is that we desire, we must gain the mental equivalent of it in consciousness. We do this by exposing the images and likenesses of it to our subconscious mind. In other words, our mind must be prepared to receive that which we seek to experience. And so we take that into our mind and we realize, what is it that we want and how many people does it benefit? How does it benefit us and how does it benefit all those who are going to be affected by it? And let's go back and let's look at those other powerful words that we got from Miss deWaters this morning. She says, faith believes in the invisible perfection rather than the outward appearances. That's why Jesus said, don't judge by appearances. Don't judge by what you see with your human eyes. Don't judge by what you can feel, hear, see, taste, and touch. But judge with righteous judgment, right judgment, knowing that God shall fulfill in you, through your consciousness, the right and perfect thing for you as you keep faith with it. As you keep faith with it. There is no way to prove your faith other than by acting upon it. No way to prove your faith rather than acting upon it. And just as Jesus told us that if we have the faith the size of a mustard seed, we can move that mountain into the sea. He was telling us that our faith must be bold and it must be fearless, and it cannot be a divided faith, for a divided faith will fail. We can't say maybe, or we can't say plan B is this if I don't get plan A, because if I have a plan A and a plan B, I don't have anything definite for the infinite to work with. So when we look at the scientific laws, we understand that the spiritual law works in the same way. It has to be definite. 2 times 2 equals 4. It never equals 2.5. It never equals 5. It never equals 6. 2 times 2 always equals 4, no matter where you may be on planet Earth. 2 times 2 is going to equal 4. And that's the way the principle works. Whatever it is that we're definite about, whatever it is that we've convinced our mind to realize for ourselves, whatever it is that we know that is the good for us and the good for all those around us, all those concerned, we can accept it in our mind as the truth for us and start bringing into our mind a mental equivalent of having it, of doing it, and of being it. But we must give our mind the mental equivalent. We must cultivate, foster, and nurture that idea until it becomes so much a part of us that we can't imagine ourselves not having it, not doing it, or not being it. And to realize that it's not us that doeth the work. As Jesus said, it's the Father that doeth the work, the Father being spirit, being intelligence, being power. It's the Father that's going to do the work. Our work is just to focus on the end result, to see ourselves personally doing it, being it, and having it, feel the joy of receiving it, feel the joy of experiencing it, feel the joy of living it, and let the principle work for us. So Miss deWaters had the mental equivalent of absolute principle. Whatever it is that we desire, we must gain the same mental equivalent of it in consciousness. And we do this by exposing the images and likenesses of it to our subconscious mind. In other words, our mind must be prepared to receive that which we seek to experience. These words from the great Rev Ike will illustrate what I mean here. Rev Ike had an amazing ministry. He inspired so many people. Rev Ike understood the principle. He understood the words of Jesus in a greater way than so many other people at his time, because he was more dynamic, more bold, and more fearless in his teaching and his demonstrating of the principle. He understood when Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and you may have it more abundantly. He realized in his mind that God has created this universe of infinite good, that no one should be lacking in any way, shape, or form. And if we are living in lack or we're living in limitation, it's because we have let the world impress those things upon our mind. This past weekend, I was reading a list of CEOs from the country. There was a list on one of the news feeds from the New York Times, I think it was, that told how much these CEOs in the country were making in 2013 and 2014, and it was comparing their earnings and also the earnings of the companies that they were in charge of. And I looked at these people's salaries in the millions of dollars, and I thought, this is just another great evidence of the truth that God has created this abundant universe, that there's enough for everyone, enough to share and to spare. There's enough for all of us to gain those good things, to live that abundant life if we choose it, if we're definite about it, if we desire it, if we take into our mind that mental equivalent of being it and having it and doing it to the point that nothing, no other result can happen but success in it. So let's look at these words from Rev Ike, because it's the simple things. As the mystical Ernest Holmes said, the universe is a riddle of simplicity. It's the simple things that get us the greater things still. Just as 2 times 2 equals 4 becomes this multiplied out through the laws and principles of mathematics, it becomes this very complex and very serious mathematical principle, we know that the simplicity of mathematics starts with the simple 1 plus 1 equals 2, 2 plus 2 equals 4, 2 times 2 equals 4, and that carries it out into the greater. So we know that we must take the simple things sometimes and let them enlarge our capacities within our mind so that we can realize the greater. So the great Reverend Ike, in his book, Reverend Ike's Secrets, wrote, I tell my congregation in New York, always buy the Wall Street Journal. Even if you don't know what it is all about, carry it with you. Your subconscious mind knows what it is and will pick up a certain feeling, a certain mentality from it. Your subconscious mind knows that the Wall Street Journal is associated with high finance. This is why I tell you also to be sure to get those high-class, high-living magazines like Town and Country. If you don't want to read it all, just look at the pictures. Your subconscious mind understands all of this. All of this helps you to build a mental equivalent of money and affluence and opulence and luxury. And whatever you have the mental equivalent of will come into your life. That's from the great Reverend Ike. And so just like Jesus telling us that if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, we can move that mountain to the sea, Reverend Ike is telling us to be bold, to go for the greater, assimilate into our mind the opulence and the abundance and the luxury of the world, and then we can find that greater thing still that we desire for our own. Maybe it won't be, maybe we don't see ourselves driving a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. Maybe we see ourselves driving a Ford Focus or a Chevy Cruze, but it's that same principle that works for the big as it does for the small, because there is no big and small to the one that creates it all, and that is God, infinite spirit, infinite intelligence, infinite power, working through our steadfast faith to bring to us, to enter into our experience those greater things still as we reaffirm the prosperous life that we knew and believed in and accepted when we came into this world. And so it is. Amen. Once again, I want to thank you for being with me today.